everyone, James Donaldson here with the Contemporary Gentleman, and I'm bringing you a video on our final thoughts on the MH-1 dual tube night vision housing. I guess that's how we'll say that. This is our experience. We had a lot of time, over a year, on these things, and shooting, a lot of not shooting and just using them, getting familiar with them, all that kind of thing. So that's all going to culminate right here in this video. Now, these were acquired by a third party, but through GP in VGS, or GP Armory, however. Josh Hall was a big piece of that, so thank you for making that happen. All other items were also acquired by a third party, so let's dig in. So getting into the meat and potatoes, what are we looking at here? We are looking at basically a particular type of housing. So that housing is dual tube. That housing has articulating tubes. That housing does have IDP stops, and it has manual gain. All pretty important things. It also has onboard illuminators, and I think there's different ways you can get it, but for the most part they come with a dovetail for mounting, and that is mainly it. Next. So weight is one of the biggest factors, and I have a little spreadsheet and I'm going to try to pop it up right about now. But what you need to understand is that by going with magnesium materials, which we'll get into, they have really dropped the weight of these. And even if you're not using these constantly, like if you're using them professionally or if you just have that much time on your hands, awesome. Even if you're not using them that long, extra weight on your neck is not a good thing. So if you're able to reduce the amount of weight you're putting on your neck, that's great. What's even better is when you can reduce that weight without really having any of the drawbacks. So all that considered, what you're going to see on the spreadsheet here is a list of different night visions, and no, MH1s are not the lightest, but they are the lightest ones that are made with using metal as the material for the housing as opposed to some kind of plastic. So very important to consider when we're talking about this. Now, onboard illuminators, we'll get into why, but I have kind of the second version. So the first version had one kind of regular map reading light and then another really bright light, and using it I really didn't need to use my helmet mounted light so much because that bright light did such a good job. Now in the revision there were some administrative concerns, and so they dimmed that brighter one down, but they're still very usable. Typically I don't care for an onboard illuminator just because I don't really need it or use it, but these I actually find myself using fairly often. Now these are built with future planning options. So they're MH-1, I'm pretty sure stands for modular housing, and that's just it. You can go from the dual tube to single, be able to remove one of these and run a single tube or two single tubes, etc. Also, you can switch out the mounting type. You can, they have new panning connectors here, so that basically you can pan them out, pan them in, whatever. That's pretty cool. So whatever else people and them come up with in time. So pretty cool feature. Now, as I talk about in a lot of my videos, I like modularity that's out of the way. So why is this thing sticking out? Why does this keep coming apart and it won't stay in? Well, it's designed to be modular, so you can replace it. Okay, well, I want it to function correctly, and then if there's some modularity that I don't even notice until I need it, that's really good. And that's exactly what these are. These are modular, but you don't really think about that feature unless you're thinking, oh, you know what, I do want to break these down to single tubes or whatever the case. So that is a really neat feature. Now, let's talk magnesium. So the vast majority of these are magnesium. Magnesium is generally softer than aluminum, so aluminum has a higher tensile strength and is more stable than magnesium. And when I talk about stability, magnesium can catch on fire. Now, specifically, that's raw magnesium. So, like, obviously this is well processed, and they wouldn't be using the material if there was any kind of hazard like that. So don't let that scare you off. But that's what it's referring to when it says stable. Now, This makes it less susceptible to bending under stress. Less as in aluminum is less susceptible to bending under stress. Though magnesium is more ductile and not as strong as aluminum, it does exhibit greater elasticity. So this means that the magnesium can endure more deformation because it will fracture as opposed to just breaking apart. So technically, these can't endure as much as an aluminum housing. However, on the other side of that coin, if the aluminum housing hits a breaking point, it will just break, shear off, that kind of thing. Whereas these will simply fracture. And there is a warranty, a very good warranty on these. So if you're experiencing that, I don't think it's really going to be a problem for you. Now, getting into corrosion resistance, magnesium is not as resistant to corrosion as aluminum. But again, you're kind of swapping weight for some other things. Now, I have had these in the weather, and I have not had any issues. There's no signs. In fact, they look kind of like I haven't been using them, which I guess in this case is good, but a lot of times I like a little wear, appearance of wear. But anyway, so the coatings on there, they're combating that, and even then, since the housing upgrade that they did, so these are technically Gen 1, some of my pictures are of my Gen, or these are technically Gen 2, some of my pictures are Gen 1, well now they're changing up how they coat the housing, and so they're getting into even more resistance against corrosion than these have, which has been outstanding. So I'm not in a scenario where I'm like, man, you know, if you're not going in the weather too much, stick with these, otherwise get aluminum. I don't think that's a concern whatsoever. Now, kind of rounding out the magnesium materials, of course we touched on weight, but comparing it to plastic, because a lot of the other night vision sets and housings on that Excel sheet I threw up, most of them are plastic, especially the popular ones, PVS 31s for instance. So what you're looking at is magnesium is still a step up from that, and pretty big step. So yet another thing to consider when comparing it to other materials. Now, getting into caveats and variables. So battery cap, they improved it, however my screw did come out. Now, I will put in right here, I meant to text them before this, I never asked them for a replacement screw. So also at the end of the day, it's not the biggest thing. I can't directly compare these to other night vision housings because these are the first ones I've had versus PVS, with the exception rather of PVS 14s. But they did improve the battery cap from the old style. The threading is much more coarse, which makes it easier to thread and unthread. And what should be noted is that I have never had it trying to walk off. And that really goes for both bodies, so I don't know if the thread matters so much with that, as just the way the metals are polished and stained together, but it is something of note. Now, something I would like to see, which a lot of pictures I see in media about these have it, but I would like to see a little guide, a little picture on this knob, so that I know what's off, what's illuminator 1, 2, etc. And some people, they'll say, why do you? If you're wearing them, you're just going to know. And sure, but the thing is which I'll tell a story here in a minute, I was having an issue. I was trying to diagnose them during the day. And the problem with that was I couldn't tell when they were on unless I turned it to illuminator, and then I could see a red dot on. So the problem was I was trying to turn them on, and they should be on, I think, but they're not on, so am I in the wrong setting? Well, a little map would tell me that. So, not something that's the end of the world. I could probably make marks on it myself or something, and maybe they've got another update that has that on there, but, you know, low light if you're watching, it's one that's just nice to have, and I don't like nitpicking, but I don't really have many other comments on these. They're just good. They're really great. So, moving on from there, in my initial impressions video, I talked about the knob and how I'm not really a fan of the knobs. Had them in PVS 14, some other ones have them, and I kind of like the buttons better. Granted, I haven't had housing that had the buttons, but in theory. Now, thinking out that theory, when you look at, like, say, the Manticore dual tube night vision housing, it has buttons, but the bridge is much bigger, so you have a material that's already heavier, and you're adding more of it, because I believe it's aluminum. I guess I'll correct it right there, and you'll have seen on my spreadsheet. But anyway, the point is that I've really come around to liking the knob, plus the simplicity. I do like simple controls, and so that's where we're at. Instead of memorizing where the buttons are, I just turn the knob. And no, I don't need the map when I'm wearing them. But anyway, I will say that the Gen 1 body, I'm calling it Gen 1 because I don't really know what they call it, the knob was kind of canted, and it wasn't as tactile, it wasn't as, I don't know what else to say, but basically this one is straight. It seemed just a little bit more durable than the other one was, and it's very tactile. I can definitely feel that I'm turning it, and so I do like that a lot. Now I will also say that the warranty is fantastic, which I'll pop up some details about it here, because I forgot to look up the exact wording, apologize. And also the Gen 2s are going to have Cerakote options, so you can get different colors in the black. I would like not black, but it's really not worth it to me to change out the housing. Maybe if I have a warranty claim and they'd give me a different color, I don't know. But it's not, I don't need it, it'd be alright. So I will say an accessory I added, which I see I'm already bending, are number 5 size split rings, which I got from Bass Pro. So that's what will fit in the little tiny hole. That's what will work. So if you're wanting to make that upgrade, that is my advice. I couldn't find that information anywhere. Now, I do want to kind of get into my story as I talk about some issues and solutions. And so if you saw my initial impressions video, I referred to using these for a 3-week exercise with the Army in the field the vast majority of the time. And plenty of operations at night. There were nights, several nights I was up all night, and so, which means I was using these. So yeah, I turned down their PVS-14, put those on. I've got L3 tubes in mine, over 23 or 2800 FOM. So real clean. They're white phosphor, of course they're unfilmed. And so I knew it was getting dark, especially being in trees, and if it's a cloudy night, I knew it was getting dark when I was having trouble, seeing as well. So it was kind of like a funny thing, because then I'm thinking about all my homies that are wearing PVS-14s, Gen 3 filmed, thin filmed green phosphor, and I'm like, damn, I bet they can't see shit. But anyway, it doesn't really have to do with the housing as much as the tubes. So getting into the story, so I was wearing these a lot, and I went on one mission, granted during the day, and I wasn't trying to be the cool guy with the dual tubes, because I went on a lot of day missions, but one of the times I wanted to beat the shit out of them in the woods. When you're going through an environment like I was in, there's just branches and shit hitting you in the face. At one point I stopped and turned, and there was a stick hanging down here, and it had gotten caught up in the Wilcox mount. So all kinds of crazy stuff happened, and that's when I started having malfunction. And one of the tubes was kind of flickering, and it kind of got better after that, using them that night. I went on basically a raid, and yeah, it's all notional, by the way. I don't want to misrepresent something. So I went on a raid, and then it was kind of like when I stepped, one of them was flickering just a little bit. I mean, when you're talking about night, darkness and some light, you're going to notice any flickering. So I was noticing some flickering, and then when I got home, I was kind of messing with it and realized that the housing, kind of where it sandwiches the middle section together, the screws were coming loose. And so then I realized somebody had commented on my previous video something about the screws and being titanium, and they're not playing well with the magnesium, which is something that makes sense in terms of metallurgy. I touch on it here and there. My background on the civilian side has to do a lot with things that kind of parallel the gun industry. Thankfully, I'm not in the gun industry, really. But, so anyway, certain materials just don't want to hug. They don't want to be friends. And so the titanium screws are trying to back out. We'll come to find out, poor timing for my initial impressions video, they had already had the update. They were already aware of a lot of the issues. And so all I did was send this back. They sent them back to me, all good to go. And so customer service is appreciated. I'm big on customer service. And along with that, I have not had any of those issues. Now, I have had more opportunities to use those and, run them through the woods again, all that kind of stuff. And thankfully, I have had no issues at all since then. So I basically had a problem that they'd already solved. I was unaware of the solution. Then I was made aware of the solution, and the solution solved the problem. So everything is running great. I'm really liking these, and so I'm going to say I recommend them for if you're looking to get into night vision, obviously especially dual tube, then this would be a really good set to get. Now, if you're a seasoned night vision person, you've got PVS 31s or DT-NVSs or whatever, because I really considered DT-NVSs when I was shopping around. And for all the benefits I talked about, these are worth it for sure. So if you're looking for something new, something to try out, new housing to swap tubes into, really take a good look at these, because I think you'll be happy with them. Being PVS 14 based, accessories are very easy to acquire and to put on it. And then also, of course, there's a lot of translation of use. I'm used to using PVS 14s. I've used them for well over 10 years at this point, so both professionally and personally. So just knowing how to focus and all that just is very natural to me. It's not something I really have to think about. Moving on from that, as I said, I do recommend these absolutely, whether you're new to night vision or you're seasoned night vision individual. I definitely recommend them to you professionally. I mean, I don't see any of all the benefits. I don't see any of the drawbacks. If you're willing to have hard plastic housing, then I don't know why you wouldn't be willing to have magnesium, even though it doesn't operate at the same level that aluminum technically does. But again, we covered that, so it's late. Thank you for watching. This is James Donaldson with the Contemporary Gentleman, and until next time, keep your composure.